everyone, Namaste. I'm Shrishtee. I'm part of Kalpavriksh, an environment action group based in Pune. I have been coordinating the Vikalp Sangam process that has been trying to bring various movements, processes, initiatives of alternatives across India together. And over the last few years, I've been working in the trans-Himalayan landscape, trying to understand people's traditional governance systems and their relation with ecology, politics, economy, and culture, and the interface with the modern institutions of governance. And while visiting the Himalayan region, it is quite evident that the communities there are facing and particularly suffering because of the climate crisis that is unfolding around us. Unpredictable weather and climatic conditions are putting communities and rest of nature at acute risk. The region is not only responsible for providing water to the large part of the Indian subcontinent, but is also marked by majestic, beautiful landscapes, rich cultural heritage, some of the unique biodiversity and wildlife to be found anywhere in the world. But all of this is being impacted by receding glaciers, by landslides, and massive climatic conditions, which also implies that there is alteration in river flows, subsequent changes in biodiversity, livelihoods, and overall well being of the Himalayan communities. The Himalayan state hence remains the most vulnerable regions in the world because of climate change, land degradation, overexploitation, and natural disasters. Challenges like inaccessibility, remoteness, fragility to the natural hazards, and vulnerability to climate change, unsustainable tourism, waste management, increasing loss of biodiversity, unemployment, and lack of livelihood options, massive immigration of rural youth, and issues of food security, all of these add to the pressures of climate crisis. And recent studies have shown that the region has become much more prone to natural disasters like floods, landslides, and droughts. And there are some other non climatic issues like human wildlife conflict, water insecurity due to drying up of natural springs, land degradation, and social demographic changes. And some of these issues differ according to gender and social identity. But what is really uh, the most amazing element of all of this is that, along with these challenges, the Himalayan communities are trying their best to challenge the systems of oppressions and finding ways to foster inspiration in ways that can actually lead to transformation. And that goes to just suggest simply the resilience, the perseverance, the tenacity, and the capacity to regenerate of the local communities themselves. In Ladakh, for instance, communities have been trying to create dignified livelihood options by focusing on regenerative tourism that helps wildlife and ecosystems thrive, promote local traditions and culture, as well as create dignified livelihoods for local people, in turn redefining what well-being is and in a sense challenging the dominant notion of development and articulating development that is actually respecting nature, promoting local livelihoods and sustainable livelihoods, and ensuring overall well-being of the communities. And communities in Ladakh, for instance, are asserting their traditional governance systems as well, demanding a more place-based governance that respects local ecologies, offers autonomy for communities to manage their commons, and in many ways create sustainable and climate resilient communities, arguing essentially that humans can only live well if the ecosystems around them are thriving. In Uttarakhand, for example, Mati Collective, a group of women who are challenging patriarchy and trying to alter the toxic masculinity that exists by actually reclaiming their control over commons, reviving their crafts, promoting generative tourism, building communities who nurture their forests, ensure dignified livelihoods, and in turn articulating a different way of being in the world. Not too far away from Munsiari and Salt, Shram Yog is working towards self-strengthening of communities in domains like health, livelihoods, learning, and environment. And their three pillars that informs their work is Sahyog, Shiksha, Sangathan, that roughly translates to cooperation, education, and organizing, to ensure that communities are able to take control of their well-being, of their development, rather than being dependent on outside forces to do that, and in that sense claiming control over their uh, basic necessities of life and really strengthening them internally to do that. In Kashmir, Sag Eco Village is attempting to build an alternative community of imagination which is rooted in traditional Kashmiri values, as well as creating possibilities of dignified livelihood for young people in one of the most difficult regions to work in. And in Himachal Pradesh, Jagori Rural is working towards strengthening women, Dalit, and Adivasi communities and the marginalized section by giving them access and supporting them in reclaiming their rights, becoming barefoot lawyers, promoting and helping support agro based agriculture, and creating, importantly, a sense of dignity and pride among the Himalayan communities that is getting increasingly lost because of the suppression and oppression that generally happens, being absent about the realities of the region, but as well as what climate crisis and how it is unfolding. I can give and keep on giving many such examples that are being documented through the Vikalp Sangam process and the Western Himalaya Vikalp Sangam initiative. But these stories need to be spoken about more, they need to be visibilized more, and importantly, they need to be strengthened more. The government, civil society needs to actually support many of these initiatives and further create spaces for dialogue, cross sectoral and intersectoral learning, so that these initiatives can be further strengthened and can actually communities can actually be empowered to mitigate and respond to climate crisis in a much more effective way. Thank you so much.